the Chancellor, His Excellency Dr. Thabo Mbeki, the Vice Chancellor and Principal of UNISA, Professor Puleng Linkabula, in her absentia, I am acting on behalf of the Vice Chancellor this morning to the professor that we are inaugurating this morning, Professor Charmaine du Plessis, her family members, parents, sisters, brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, and loved ones. Members of this college management, the College of Human Sciences and staff, the Executive Dean of the College of Human Sciences, Professor Masemola, esteemed professors gracing this lecture this morning, academic and administrative colleagues, distinguished guests, UNISA students, and visiting students from other higher education institutions, supporters, funders, UNISA alumni, and most importantly, to you, Professor du Plessis, again, the celebrity of the day, Sanbonan, Molwen, Tubelang, Avwan, Huemore, good morning, all protocol observed. My name is Professor Tenjiwe Meiwa. I'm the Vice Principal responsible for research, postgraduate studies, innovation, and commercialization at this university. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, good morning and welcome to Professor du Plessis' inaugural lecture. Professor du Plessis is affiliated with the Department of Communication and Information Sciences. Please allow me to singularly acknowledge the Executive Dean again, under whom she serves. I also want to welcome and particularly single out the family. We also welcome Professor Angelopu of the Department of Communication Science, from which Prof. du Plessis comes, within the College of Human Sciences, who will serve as the respondent during the installation this morning. He's also served as the mentor. Ladies and gentlemen, in these turbulent, challenging times, globally, within the country, and for our sector, the higher education sector's role and relevance, and of the university in particular, gets questioned. So are our outputs, that is our products, and as a university, in terms of the graduates and knowledge that we produce, we must attest to the importance of the academic project. Our role and relevance must also attest to what we are about, our identity as a university that is a distance university, that is comprehensive in its pursuit. And so, should we be attesting about our service of humanity as per our slogan of being a university that shapes futures. As an institution, we should produce graduates that are ready to ask hard questions. But hard questions of themselves and on their own are not enough. Hence, we need those students not only to ask those questions, but do so under the guide and guard of professors of the nature whom we are installing this morning, like Professor du Plessis. It will not be sufficient for us as a university, or for any university for that matter, to just produce clever graduates. We must produce honest graduates who don't only ask these difficult questions, but who we as a university, as a society, as communities from which these graduates come, shall do so, also engendering trust, ethical behavior in their private lives. and do so being cognizant of the injustices of this country and of the world at large. We are, as a university, and as we install Professor du Plessis this morning, contribute to such kinds of graduates that have to accept responsibility and be cognizant of, as well as respond to, the ills that we find in a society. We, however, cannot produce such graduates without a good cadre of the professorate of Prof. du Plessis' kind. It is for that reason that we, as an institution, take such an occasion of an inaugural lecture very seriously. As we note, this is a very proud moment for us, and it reflects one of our pinnacles in the academic achievement. Prof. du Plessis has come to the final rank of the ladder as a full professor, and as we install here this morning. And therefore, it is a moment where we as a university say that our aspirations of growing our research, our expertise, forms of innovating are becoming even more real as we install and inaugurate Professor du Plessis this morning. We've just added additional expertise to our portfolio of those who can profess, as we'll hear intently Prof. du Plessis' lecture as she delivers it this morning. You may be asking, what is a professor at a university? A professor is a mentor who is expected to produce, reproduce products of high excellence, bring in research funds, as well as mentor more professors. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm inviting you to use the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen to not only congratulate Professor du Plessis, but also, as she continues to deliver the lecture, to make comments and suggestions in relation to how she could do more of what she is set to talk to us about this morning. In terms of today's proceedings, Professor Masemula, who's the Executive Dean of the College of Human Sciences, will introduce Professor du Plessis and invite her to the podium. Professor du Plessis will then present her lecture entitled Enacting Brand Purpose with Social Media Brand Communication During a Global Public Health Pandemic. How apt. This lecture by Prof. du Plessis is drawn from various works of her own to which she's contributed in trying to understand how brand purpose can be enacted with social media brand communication. She reflects on the COVID-19 pandemic crisis in tackling challenges related to this subject field, as well as she responds to the question that she posed to herself. During the coronavirus pandemic, many communication brands had to think outside of the box, but did so focusing on enhancing their identity. And in enhancing their identity, that is exactly what Prof. du Plessis this morning is analyzing. After she's given that analysis, and as you'll be giving comments, not just only congratulatory remarks, but comments on what she is sharing with us this morning, she will then end her lecture. Professor Angelopu, who is the respondent we have this morning, shall follow Prof. du Plessis with a response, without me coming back to the podium to do any announcement. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I now invite the Executive Dean, Prof. Masemula, to come to the podium to introduce Prof. Du Plessis, whom we are installing this morning.
Vice Chancellor Professor Linkabula, and Vice Principal of Research, Postgraduate Studies, Innovation and Commercialization, Professor Tenjue Meyiwa, members of External Management, members of the College of Human Sciences Management, and allow me to recognize in particular School Director Professor Mpako and the COD of the department, Professor Siasanga Chali, as well as the respondent in this inaugural event, Professor George Angelo Pulo. I want to welcome members of the university community at large and extend a warm welcome to the husband, son, and family of Professor Charmaine Du Plessis, who has attained the zenith of scholarship and the bold imprint that she has made in the niche area to which she belongs. The university recognizes that Professor Charmaine Du Plessis is a full professor on the strength of the attainments that she has made, and these are quite extensive, quite impactful, and they bring quite a lot of prestige to the UNISA academic fraternity. And so I take occasion to welcome everybody and also stand here to affirm the meritocratic values that have shored up the career of Professor Charmaine Du Plessis. Many of you will wonder, just beyond the publications that are so vast that she's written, who is Professor Charmaine Du Plessis? Well, Professor Theresia Charmaine Du Plessis actually graduated in Inaugural North, the grade 12 before. She qualified the grade 12 in Inaugural North High School before she proceeded to the University of the Free State to complete her BA in communications. She also went on to attain an honors in communication in 1992 at UNISA. And in the year 2000, she graduated with a Master of Arts in Communication Sciences cum laude, with a dissertation that was entitled Integrated Marketing Communication at UNISA, an evaluation of its publicity. And then in the year 2001, she commenced with her PhD, a DLiT at Phil in Communication Science, which she duly completed in the year 2005. And the title of the thesis was A Theoretical Framework of Corporate Online Communication in Marketing Public Relations MPR Perspective. Other than that, over and above that, she has advanced short courses in outcomes-based assessment in higher education and Open Distance Learning Institute, the Inter Center for Community Training and Development, which she had attained in the year 2008. She also holds a postgraduate diploma in marketing management from the UNISA Center of Business Management and a short course in brand management from the University of Cape Town, which she completed in the year 2018. She has another qualification called the Introduction to Research Ethics, which is an online TREE training program in research ethics, and she completed Module 1 with the University of South Africa in the same 2018. Further to that, as recently as 2020, she also completed a research ethics evaluation, Module 2, on the online training program in research ethics, and that was in the year 2020. May I bring it to your attention, ladies and gentlemen, that our distinguished and extraordinary Professor Charmaine Du Plessis has entrenched herself in the various fields of expertise in which she has been involved, in which she has published and supervised extensively. And the fields are corporate online communication, marketing communication, integrated marketing communication, IMC, corporate product and services brands, so branding, branded journalism, integrated branding, content marketing, brand communication, social media communication within an organizational communication and marketing communication context, and she is a specialist in Q methodology. In her previous positions, she has been a communication officer with the Department of Trade and Industry and marketing and public relations officer from the year 1992 to 1996 at UNISA's College of Economic and Management Sciences, which was in the duration which covered the 1st of February 1997 to 28th of February 1999, which catapulted her, however, to this academic position that has now culminated in her being a full professor. But she has been appointed in this position on the 1st of March 1999, and the teaching experience that she has is in the following subject areas: integrated marketing communication, public relations, advertising, business communication, organizational communication research, integrated organizational communication. And she has, on the basis of that expertise, offered undergraduate tuition, lecturing, writing and developing study material, setting and evaluating assignments, setting and evaluating of examination scripts, and also the administrative tasks attached to that, student support, lecturing face-to-face, satellite broadcasts, and video conferencing. She has, at postgraduate level, offered tuition to honors, lecturing, writing and developing study material, setting and evaluating the assignments that came with it, and setting and evaluating for examination scripts. And she has also has offered student support, lecturing, for example, also via satellite broadcast in earlier years, departmental interactive broadcast, vodcast, Google Hangouts, infographics, teaching via MyUnisa, using the Google intranet electronic platforms, ladies and gentlemen, and Zoom. And she has been involved in the supervision of honors, numerous research projects. As far as master's and doctoral students are concerned, she has been involved in the evaluation of research proposal, evaluation of academic chapters submitted, and guidance in the research process and supervision to completion of several number of students in this regard. And she has also acted as the non-examining chair, the NEC, an external examiner for other universities. She has been extensively involved as part of the quality assurance exercise in the recent recalculation of most of the programs that are offered in the Department of Communication Science, and she's currently involved in the recalculation process for the BA Communication Science degree and QF Level 6 modules. In terms of academic citizenship, we have seen that her external involvement has led her to the International Program Committee member, to become the International Program Committee member of the International Conference on E-Business since 2012 to now. And she's also an International Program Committee member of the International Conference on Future of Media. She's also sitting as a Program Advisory Committee member at the Vega School of Branding since 2018 till current. She's a member of the National Research Foundation Reviewers Panel, and she's a member of the International Institute of Social and Economic Sciences. She's an external examiner for University of Pretoria, the University of Johannesburg, Cape Peninsula University of Technology, and Heidelberg College. It's at the university level, we see her as having been a student disciplinary committee member from 2013 to 2014. In the College of Human Sciences, she has been a member of Promotions Task Group 2008, a member of Principal Prize Task Group in 2008, a member of Chancellor's Prize Task Group in 2008, a chair of the Principal's Prize Task Group in 2009, a member of the College of Human Sciences Tuition Committee from the year 2012 to 2013, a member of School of Arts Tuition Committee 2012-2013, member of the Research Exit Committee 2020 to 2021, and she has participated in the College of Human Sciences formal mentorship program. At departmental level, She has been the Deputy Chair of Department of Communication Science 2007-2008, Acting Chair of Department of Communication Science on various occasions from 2007-2015, Chair of Departmental Research Committee 2008-2009, a member of College Research Committee 2008-2009. He's been a member of the Departmental Management Committee 2008-2016, 2020-2021, and Chair of Departmental Marketing Committee 2004-2006, and webmaster of the departmental webpage from 2001 to 2008. She is a co-owner, administrator, and developer of the departmental Google-based communication science intranet domain since the year 2014 to date. Professor Charmaine du Plessis is the chair of the departmental tuition committee and has been from 2012-2013, member of School of Arts tuition committee 2012 to 2013, project leader of the BA Communication Science Recalculation Committee since 2014-2015, and chair of departmental digital committee in 2016, member of the departmental research committee in 2018, member of the departmental digital committee in 2018, and I'd like to say this is a member of the departmental ethics committee in the recent years of 2020-2021, and the chair of the departmental doctoral review committee in the year 2020. It remains to be said that over and above her extraordinary and vast body of work that she has produced to date, Professor Charmaine du Plessis has also been a reviewer for peer-reviewed local and international journals such as Comunicatio, Communicare, Southern African Business Review, South African Business Management, African Journal of Information Systems, South African Journal of Information Sciences, COME, the International Journal of Communication Inquiry, Information Systems and E-Business Management, the Journal of Marketing, Communications, Text and Image, Semiotica, Sage Open, Employee Responsibility and Rights Journal, Journal of Research and Interactive Marketing, and Journal of Brand Management, amongst others. But that did not limit her executing her tasks also with equal diligence in the area of community engagement, which also yielded a research project. And she has been a project leader for an interdisciplinary team in the Department of Communication Science and Health Studies, which has been titled the Youth Citizen Action Program, YCAP, a partnership in skills development and skills transfer among grade 7 and grade 10 learners in South Africa through an annual competition from the year 2013 until current. The spin-off of this exercise has been that she has conducted research about the impact of YCAP, and also she has been writing a research report on this, and she has been a sustainability partner for Empower VADE, a non-profit organization whose flagship program YCAP is. Most recent workshop that Prof. du Plessis has presented was for the College of Human Science in 2016 on how to use social media for personal branding. She presented it at departmental workshop for the recalculation of the new national diploma in public relations, 2016 latest trends in the public relations field, and presented at the webinar on internet-based and social media research ethics for the Directorate of Research Ethics in the College of Human Sciences on the 21st of July 2020. She presented at a webinar on ethics and qualitative secondary data for the Directorate of Research Ethics and College of Human Sciences on the 2nd of March 2021. And the cherry on top, the fleur de cap, as it were, is that Professor Charmaine du Plessis was rated by the National Research Foundation as a C3 researcher, a position which is quite prestigious, a rating that she holds on until now. She has published peer-reviewed articles in accredited journals since 2001, and I'll cite just a couple of those here. The importance of IMC in dealing with negative, non-generated publicity in the organization, in the Journal Communicatio, South African Journal of Communication Theory and Research, and then proceeded to publish much the more of the same, if not better, quality journal outputs in journals of good repute and top drawer journals internationally. And I want to say that, for example, in 2018, she had published Social Media Crisis Communication, Enhancing a Discourse of Renewal Through Dialogic Content in Public Relations Review. And published with Dan du Plessis, also Afrikaans op Twitter in 'n wêrelddorp. Lohaniese perspective, Afrikaans on Twitter in a global village, a Maglogian perspective in the General Tydskrif vir Geesteswetenskappe, of volume 5841 in December 788. Yeah. So in 2019, she continued in the same trend, to produce an article called Prosumer Engagement Through Story Making in Transmedia Branding in the International Journal of Cultural Studies. And she went on, to date, it's 2021, she's still continuing to produce this extraordinary and great scholarship of high quality, which is published now in the Journal of African Elections, and there is an upcoming journal article in an accredited journal, South African Journal of Information Management, an article which is titled An Integrated Social Media Communication View on Content Marketing by South African non-profits. It gives me great pleasure, therefore, that as I read all this distinguished record of achievement, on the basis of which we are now fully recognizing the meritorious achievements of Professor Charmaine du Plessis, to formally request her to give her lecture, which is entitled Enacting Brand Purpose with Social Media Brand Communication During a Global Public Health Pandemic. I invite, ladies and gentlemen, to the podium, Professor Charmaine du Plessis. Thank you.
Prof. Meiwa, Vice Principal, Research, Postgraduate Studies, Innovation and Commercialization. Professor Masimola, Executive Dean, College of Human Sciences. Colleagues from the Department of Communication Science, College of Human Sciences, broader UNISA community, and other institutions, also from abroad. My husband's son, family, friends, and associates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am deeply humbled by the warm welcome to this event and for the introduction to my academic career. Likewise, I'm also sincerely grateful for UNISA's recognition of my scholarship and my inauguration today as a full professor. Thank you all for attending this virtual event. Since the end of March last year, we have been experiencing unprecedented times when we joined the rest of the world to weather a global public health pandemic no one would see coming. Because this pandemic has had such a huge impact on all aspects of our lives, I'm sure that my lecture will resonate with you in some way. I want to start my lecture with a brief introduction to the topic. We live in an era of radical visibility because of new technologies and media, which make platforms available for individuals to stand up for their beliefs and opinions on a scale never seen before. This was witnessed in the global Me Too movement and the increased consumer resistance against fake news on social and other digital media platforms. Similarly, brands increasingly let their voices be heard because many now stand up for what they believe in by refocusing on the us instead of the we and seeing consumers as part of an extended brand ecosystem. Overall, consumer expectations of brands have also changed, as they want their brand experiences to align with their personal values to which brands must strive to adhere. However, never have brands been more in the spotlight than during this public health pandemic. Starting in Wuhan, China in late 2019, COVID-19 has reached all continents within a very short time, leaving an immense social and economic impact, including on South Africa. The global outbreak of the coronavirus posed several challenges for brands, spanning from media to non-media brands. While some brands continue to let their voices be heard, others simply disappeared. At the time of this lecture, COVID-19 has already had a devastating impact, not only on consumers, but also on some of the larger brands. In South Africa, we witnessed several media and non-media brands closing their doors across different industries. Even long-standing media brands with well-known print titles did not survive, while others now must take stock of lessons learned while reflecting on how to move forward by considering different business modules. With the effect of the devastating consequences of COVID-19 for South African brands that will still be evident in many years to come, it will be very difficult for those brands that survived the pandemic to emerge stronger than before. Many brands are no strangers to crisis management, but the global scale and continued uncertainty around COVID-19 created unique and prolonged challenges. The stay-at-home directives, radical shifts in demand for certain product categories, undersupply distribution channels, and supply chain difficulties for certain organizations have disrupted behaviors and required consumers to shop in new ways. While many brands' demise was the result of stay-at-home directives, the change in consumer behavior also had an impact on brands as consumers took protective actions against the virus and changed their spending habits. While consumers became concerned with micro issues, they also still needed fundamental necessities in their lives. As a result, many preferred staying with trusted brands. Even though consumers have settled into this new normal, many have indicated that they would maintain their newly learned financial skills to save money and make better provision for the future, which added to the confounding time for brands. With this lecture, I want to share with you the importance of brands having a brand purpose and how purpose became a survival mechanism during this public health pandemic. I argue that by having a brand purpose in place before the pandemic hit the world, allowed brands to live up to their values during the crisis and to continue to develop authentic connections and thus still letting their voices be heard. I will focus on an example of a South African brand that enacted its brand purpose as a unifying force by being an active participant in consumers' lives as an industry leader on social media and other digital platforms. After having introduced the topic, I can state that the research question for this lecture is: how did a South African brand represent the reason for their existence with social media brand communication during the current public health pandemic? But before I answer this question, I want to provide you with some further context. A brand does not exist. This sounds like a controversial statement, but let me explain. A brand does not exist because it is a social construct that we as a society invent to help make sense of things. A social construct does not exist in objective reality, but because of human interaction and human agreement that something exists. According to social construct theory, humans create constructs to make sense of the objective world. Humans can also alter the construct as they continue to interact. Brands thus exist in the minds and hearts of consumers, but it is the responsibility of brand managers to create representations of the brand, such as visual identity and brand messaging. With this in mind, a brand cannot exist without products and services which consumers buy to use, but consumers select a brand based on what it represents. The concept of a brand is thus dependent on interpretations and perceptions of consumers based on their experiences with the brand. A brand also only exists when tangible products or services become augmented with images, symbols, perceptions, and emotions to create distinct ideas and meanings in people's minds. Products and services are also enhanced with brand messaging, such as brand stories about why a brand exists and matters. At its core, a brand resonates with consumers because of a distinctive image and identity. There are numerous definitions of a brand in the academic literature, covering different topics. In addition, brand experts also define brands with different nuances. A brand is thus not a predetermined concept, but rather multidisciplinary with different perspectives across disciplines. For this lecture, a brand is defined as a multidimensional construct that exists in a continuous process of cyclical communication between the actions of the firm and the interpretations and redefinitions of the consumers, through which the brand is imbued with certain values and expectations. This definition reinforces the idea that a brand solely exists because of consumers' perceptions and interpretations. Perceptions and interpretations of a brand have become even more important because the novel coronavirus forced many consumers into a digital-only way of life. That being the case, consumers now access and interpret online brand messages differently than before, which has a significant effect on the way that brands will operate in future. Especially during challenging times such as we are currently experiencing, a brand's response and messages shape the brand's ability to preserve loyalty and kinship from consumers. Having clarified that the brand exists because of perceptions and interpretations, I will now explain what brand purpose is and why it matters during difficult times. The 2017 Meaningful Brands Report results, based on an analysis of 1,500 brands in 33 countries and surveying 300,000 consumers, indicate that respondents would not mind if 74% of the brands in the world ceased to exist. These results demonstrate that consumers do not care about brands that have no interest in societal health, the planet, or consumers' quality of life. The brand's purpose must not be confused with the brand's promise, where the consumer knows what to expect based on prior expectations shaped by the brand. Rather, a brand purpose goes much deeper and represents the reason for the brand's existence beyond making a profit, rooted in its brand mission. For a brand with purpose, it is no longer about me, but about us, which forms the foundation for every experience the consumer has with the brand. Finding a noble purpose is the core of brand purpose, as well as how to use it to better serve consumers and the community at large. Brands that do not focus solely on product benefits, but reflect a higher purpose to serve and address the barriers to consumers' aspirations for a better life, have an authentic reason for being. It is for this reason that brand purpose creates value, loyalty, and long-lasting emotional relationships with consumers. Purpose-driven brands communicate passion and emotion rather than functional benefits, and in doing so have a greater chance of persuading consumers to purchase their products and or services. Brand purpose differentiates brands and provides the foundation for every brand experience and underlying essence that makes a brand relevant and necessary to consumers because it is aligned with their values. Also, a brand that is driven by purpose always reflects on its core mission to solve a consumer's problem or to meet society's needs. It is therefore important for brands to know why their products or services exist and how to build everything else which the brand has to offer by using their purpose as a foundation. Furthermore, a brand with a powerful brand purpose aligns its core values with its products and services that resonate with consumers on a personal level. This means that an organization whose marketing and branding efforts draw inspiration from its core purpose can build deeper connection with consumers, as evidenced by research findings. Therefore, it is important for brands to reconsider their role in South Africa and even the world, and why the brands should matter to society, also with regard to their social, political, ecological, and environmental position. For example, the purpose of a brand such as Tesla is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable transport. In doing so, Tesla created a culture of technology design and innovation fueled by its brand purpose to move the world away from polluting fossil fuels. The most effective way for a brand to shape the future is by doing good. Today's advanced technologies and platforms provide strengths and advantages that enable the creation of strong brands that can improve societies around the world. Brands that ask the question why they do what they are doing enhance how they do things in addition to applying acquired knowledge that only benefits them. For brands to thrive in future and during times of crisis, the know why has become more important than the know how. Deep thinking and soul searching are important to find and articulate brand purpose. Consumers resonate with a brand with purpose and can sense that the brand represents a higher quality. In addition, employees also care more about the brand's success. It can thus be argued that brands must perform with purpose to grow the brand with brand loyalty, and at the same time act as ethical and responsible citizens of the world. In South Africa, brand purpose must still make stronger inroads among brands. Especially now, South African consumers are seeking inspiration and want to form new connections to fill their lives with purpose. A purpose-led brand that stands for something can create a lasting bond with consumers and inspire meaningful change in their lives. Brand strategists are advocating that African brands must respond to COVID-19 with a purpose-driven response and reminding brands that now is the time to stand up for what matters. I argue that African brands who have exhibited a purpose before this pandemic will naturally support their customers and employees, and in doing so, continue to live their purpose and commitment to society. These are the brands that will still matter in years to come. I also want to address why brand purpose matters during difficult times. A global crisis such as COVID-19 puts the strengths and weaknesses of brands under the spotlight. The veil of purpose of brands has been lifted by either really putting consumers' needs first or highlighting their real intentions. Also, because of the lockdown nature of government's response to the crisis, altering consumers' daily experiences, the coronavirus pandemic is not just any crisis. Humans are craving comfort, connections, and familiar experiences. Consequently, if consumers have not cared about a brand before a pandemic or crisis, they will care even less during tough times, and these brands will die a natural death. This is because relationships, including our relationships with brands, have an emotional component which becomes more visible during times of crisis. The 2018 purpose study by Cone, a Porto Novelli company, confirms that consumers want brands to communicate with a clear purpose. Results indicate that those brands that lead with purpose build better connections with consumers, attract new consumers, and inspire brand advocates to share the brand's message. To stay relevant in a world that has changed completely, brands cannot simply reappear and sell more products and/or services. Now, more than ever, consumers expect brands to improve their lives and to understand their struggles, needs, and aspirations, and to address those issues that matter to them in a meaningful way. A brand that provides greater value to consumers beyond making a profit and has made a deeper emotional connection will survive, even during difficult times, as the brand's purpose has a unifying influence. Brands do not exist in isolation, but are part of an integrated ecosystem of brand touchpoints where the consumer meets the brand. Brand purpose provides a consistent experiences with the brand at all these touchpoints and creates a good first impression, which is further deepened with customer engagement. A brand without a purpose will experience mass resistance during difficult times, not only from consumers, but also from employees, where fear will take over, resulting in resistance to the brand's objectives and goals. Consumers and employees will carry a brand with purpose during difficult times, because purpose acts like a bridge with a safety net. This is also true for South African brands, which during COVID-19 have had to adhere to their brand purpose to support, inform, and inspire consumers with relevant brand messages that emphasize their functional value. Under stricter lockdown rules, it was more difficult for some brands to communicate functional value, but those brands that were not able to operate could still enact their brand purpose in different ways by engaging employees and important stakeholders, or to repurpose their value chains to provide essential services or products. While it is true that many consumers do not care about a brand's purpose, their experiences with brands without purpose will be less satisfying. This is because a brand's purpose is instilled through consumers' experiences with the brand and their belief that the brand provides them with more value than others. To a certain extent, COVID-19 has also redefined the meaning of having brand purpose. Many brands that previously only focused on brand differentiation of their products and/or services are now assisting government, healthcare professionals, and the public in ways previously unimaginable. This partnership could even continue to grow in years to come. Findings of a 2020 survey among South Africans by research company Have You Heard show that consumers held brands to the highest possible standards during the pandemic and expected to be assisted with a responsible humanity-first approach. For example, respondents felt that brands could assist them with cheaper products and/or service offerings or support their efforts to be protected from the virus infection. In addition, the findings also reveal how brands' actions and efforts during lockdown could influence consumer perceptions in future. Because of the more digital way of life, brands have had the opportunity to enact their brand purpose in social media, where many consumers have spent more time. This brings me to the topic of strengthening brand purpose with social media brand communication. Social media has expanded exponentially since O'Reilly introduced the concept Web 2 in 2005 and has become part of consumers' daily lives. Web 2 redefined the World Wide Web as an interactive social platform where individual users could manage their own data and create content known as user-generated content. Due to the popularity of social media, brands have recognized the opportunity to connect with consumers on different Web 2 platforms and have devised their brand strategies to integrate with social media to convey brand messages. Brands' presence on social media can have different forms. For example, with paid advertising, paid media, by linking to brand content on their websites or blog, owned media, or with branded engagement to drive social conversations around a topic, earned media. Brands have also created brand pages on social media to keep up with technological changes, to gain social word of mouth, compete with competitors, build relationships with consumers, and create brand awareness. To convey brand messages on social media, brands have adopted social media brand communication, which can be defined as any piece of brand-related communication distributed via social media that enables Internet users to access, share, engage with, add to, and co-create. Social media brand communication is also often used to stimulate debate on a topic. The current health pandemic has provided brands with another kind of debate on social media, namely, to illustrate what they state they are standing for. By meaningfully responding and interacting with their target audiences on social media about important COVID-19 related topics and issues, consumers could obtain a better sense of brands' reason for existence. For example, social media allowed brands to not only reach but also engage with their audiences in spaces where they were already spending more time, while showing them their support. Because social media brand communication has been recognized by brands as a powerful medium to build relationships with consumers, even before the pandemic, they could bring into play their purpose authentically with content that is engaging, useful, and reflecting their core values. Brand social media communication therefore not only influenced the actions of consumers, but also served as a defining moment for some brands in terms of how consumers will relate with them in future. While acknowledging many other South African brands' initiatives on social media during the pandemic, this lecture focuses on South Africa's largest mobile operator, with 117 million customers across the continent. The Vodacom brand will be familiar to many of you, and I therefore hope that you will find this example interesting. Vodacom's brand purpose, "We connect for a better future," is simple and serves as an overarching reason why the brand exists. In addition, the brand purpose is universal, yet tangible, and rests on 3 pillars, namely inclusion for all, digital society, and the planet. Vodacom is committing to providing internet access via mobile devices, as they believe that connectivity opens opportunities to transform lives and connect for a better future. I use the following methodology and procedure to answer the research question. A general inductive approach was followed to establish how Vodacom executed its brand purpose on 2 social media platforms, namely Facebook and Twitter. The analysis covered the period from 27 March 2020, when the lockdown in South Africa was announced, until 31st July 2020, thus a period of 5 months during the highest alert levels restrictions. At the time of analysis, Vodacom had almost 2 million followers on Facebook and more than 465,000 followers on Twitter. A corpus consisting of 117 tweets on Twitter and 209 Facebook posts was analyzed using the InVivo Plus software. The inductive analysis allowed me to develop an underlying structure of how Vodacom executed its brand purpose on social media. A rigorous and systematic reading and coding of the corpus allowed some major ideas to emerge. Data analysis was thus determined by both the research question, deductive, and the interpretations of the raw data, inductive. After grouping similar ideas together, 3 main ideas became evident in the data. However, although each associated idea in the corpus is treated as discrete, they are to a large extent also intertwined. The trustworthiness of the results was enhanced by a coding consistency check, whereby another coder was given text that has not been coded and was asked to assign sections of the new text into the initial themes. How Vodacom executed brand purpose in social media during COVID-19. 3 main themes became evident in the data, namely aligning consumer priorities with core brand values, being future-focused, and helpful information sharing for principle-driven solutions and support. If you are interested in the study, you can contact me so that I can share with you a copy of this lecture to understand the different codes and representative quotes for each of the 3 themes. For this lecture, however, I will only report on the overall themes as follows. Theme 1, aligning consumer priorities with core brand values. The underscoring idea of aligning consumer priorities with brand values encapsulates all brand communication by Vodacom that was shaped around the priorities of consumers while being cognizant of their core brand values. Especially during the lockdown alert levels 4 and 5, some of the biggest priorities of consumers were, amongst others, to stay in touch with family and friends and having access to reliable technology to connect to the internet to do their work from home and to organize their lives. Data shows that during the period under review, Vodacom aligned consumer priorities with their brand values of trust, simplicity, and speed. These core values acted as guiding principles with regard to how they conducted business and showcased their perspective on the world. In doing so, the brand communicated with compassion by focusing on consumers' immediate needs rather than merely highlighting the functional benefits of their products and services. Brand messages were, amongst others, focused on how the brand could be trusted to unite family and friends who could not be together because of the lockdown. In addition, Vodacom also highlighted the value of simplicity by illustrating how their technology could improve consumers' lives under lockdown by optimally applying it in their everyday lives. The brand value of speed was emphasized by referring to the convenience of Vodacom's mobile application, while highlighting how a fast connection would address consumers' questions and problems quickly without having to leave their homes. Overall, Vodacom's brand purpose was implemented by embedding their core values in compassionate brand messages and grouping them with the hashtags Stay Connected and Stay Together. Theme 2, being future-focused. The underscoring idea of being future-focused encapsulates all brand communication by Vodacom that was focused on highlighting and presenting opportunities to ensure an exciting digital future for Vodacom and all their stakeholders. Data shows that their brand messages were guided by an overarching purpose to expand and simplify connectivity and to provide consumers with online opportunities to enhance their lives, not only during but also after the lockdown period, by connecting to a better future. In doing so, the brand activated their brand purpose by directing consumers to focus on the future, by making available homeschool education opportunities via its e-school and digital platforms, assisting teachers and consumers to acquire new skills, and making available free data for students from the University of Witwatersrand, amongst other things. In addition, the brand has also illustrated how they have been focused on improving their network by forming new partnerships for a better digital future and inclusivity for all, even beyond the pandemic. Overall, Vodacom's brand purpose was also enacted by being focused on the future in a quest to assist consumers and for both the brand and consumers to become better equipped and to yield benefits after the pandemic. Theme 3, helpful information sharing for principle-driven solutions and support. The underscoring idea of helpful information sharing for principle-driven solutions and support encapsulates all brand communication by Vodacom that illustrated an understanding of consumers' situation by responding with principle-driven solutions and action-driven support. Data shows that Vodacom shared brand messages that were not only focused on the brand, but on both the brand and consumers, hence emphasizing the idea of we are in it together. This served as the foundation for all consumer experiences with the brand during the harder period of the lockdown restrictions. In addition, Vodacom's information sharing was rooted in promoting positivity while providing helpful, authentic information to consumers to assist them with their daily struggles and problems. Consequently, Vodacom only referenced fact-based information sourced from the government, the Department of Health, and other reputable online sources with simple, transparent, and helpful messages. They shared information with consumers on safety measures, sanitizing, kept them abreast of the latest information about the virus, debunked myths, advised them how to obtain medical access, how to be entertained with performances and news, and focused on the needs of parents with kids at home. Vodacom's communication thus provided support in a meaningful manner. Overall, Vodacom's brand purpose was also enacted with principle-driven solutions that considered their reason for being, namely, to solve consumers' problems during the lockdown. This brings me to how Vodacom enacted their brand purpose using social media brand communication during the public health pandemic, which can now be highlighted as follows. The findings illustrate how the mobile brand delivered on its brand purpose during the higher alert levels of the lockdown period in South Africa by being an active participant in consumers' lives as an industry leader. The brand's social media communication acted as a roadmap, assisting consumers during a difficult period in their lives. Furthermore, it is evident that their brand purpose is rooted in truth because it is at the core of what makes the brand relevant. During the period under review, the brand activated the reason why they exist on social media as a demonstrative signal to the outside world of the values and belief system behind them. Their brand purpose was activated with conviction by executing their core values with skillfully constructed social media brand communication. The example has shown that Vodacom aligned their brand purpose, "We connect for a better future," with consumer priorities in accordance with their values, being focused on the future and with principle-driven solutions to adequately address consumers' problems during the lockdown period. The brand acted as a unifying force between consumers' lived experiences of the pandemic and the brand's overarching reason for its existence. This was possible because everything that the brand had to offer was based on the brand's purpose as foundation. While their brand communication on Facebook was more focused on how their values aligned with consumer priorities and by providing value-driven solutions and support during the lockdown period, Twitter was used to focus on the future by highlighting opportunities which could benefit consumers and the brand well beyond the pandemic. South Africans, like other nations around the world, wanted comfort, connections, and familiarity during the higher alert levels. In this regard, Vodacom's brand purpose was attuned to align with consumers' needs, concerns, and problems, and acted almost like a bridge with a safety net to continue being relevant in consumers' lives. Furthermore, the brand's purpose provided a consistent experience for consumers, which was further enhanced with brand communication that put them at the center of the brand's focus. It is acknowledged that unlike many other brands, Vodacom was in a position to use advanced technologies and platforms to do good and to improve consumers' lives during the stricter lockdown period. The pandemic, however, highlighted the brand's strengths in that they showed true leadership by achieving a balance between purposefulness and making a profit. The brand meaningfully responded to and interacted with their target audiences on social media in line with why the brand exists, and could thus execute its purpose authentically by providing information and product offerings to their fans and followers that reflect their core values. Theoretically, the findings add to the body of knowledge of purpose-driven marketing during an eventuality. Purpose-driven marketing is still an underdeveloped area of investigation in the marketing communication literature, especially when it comes to emerging economies. Also, previous work has focused mainly on purposeful brands in relation to the relationship and cause-related marketing fields, and neglected how social media brand communication can be leveraged to convey and initiate brand purpose to navigate the brand's relevance during a crisis. The findings can also serve as a heuristic for brand managers in emerging economies, how to use social media brand communication to represent and leverage brand purpose. A brand's purpose must be clearly articulated, authentic, and be focused on the long term and conveyed on social media with relevant brand messages. The study has also illustrated how COVID-19 has redefined brand purpose to also extend to partnerships with government and other organizations, and that brands must not only focus on brand differentiation. I want to conclude my lecture with the following remarks. I hope that my lecture contributes to a better understanding of how brand purpose can be enacted with social media brand communication during a pandemic or any other crisis. During this pandemic, many brands' purpose was put to the test as they had to activate their reason for being. I illustrated how South Africa's largest mobile operator instinctively used its brand purpose as the foundation for all its offering and brand communication. Although the findings cannot be generalized to beyond Vodacom's brand communication during the period under review, the insights gained can nonetheless create value for wider audiences in terms of how brand purpose can assist a brand to stay relevant in consumers' lives during difficult times. On social media, where large audiences are present, brands have the opportunity to aptly respond to and interact with consumers and build community loyalty. By aligning consumer priorities with their values, being focused on the future and providing value-driven solutions, Vodacom not only enacted its brand purpose, but in doing so, the brand's social media communication was authentic. However, a purpose-driven brand is not only about promoting core values, creating a social media hashtag, a pledge, or viral content, but must inspire by providing comfort, connections, and familiar experiences with real actions that improve consumers' lives and contribute to society. Research indicates that consumers expect brands to play a meaningful role in their lives by understanding their struggles, needs, and aspirations, and to address those issues that matter most to them. These consumer expectations matter, especially during COVID-19, when consumers have to adjust to a new way of life and a new normal. Further research on this topic could gain insight from audiences with regard to their consumption of social media brand communication from different purpose-driven brands. The research could also be expanded to focus on the employees of such brands. This will further assist our understanding of how brands can enact their purpose by living up to their reason for existence. Thank you to all for listening and attending. My respondent, Prof. George Angelopoulos, is an expert in brand management and communication.
Professor Meyiwa, Professor Masemola, distinguished guests, colleagues. 22 years ago, I was asked to coordinate the advertising of our university over a 2-year period, and part of this work required collaboration with the university's colleges, which were then called faculties. One of these faculties was Economic and Management Sciences, and my liaison with that faculty was a young marketing officer called Charmaine Screven. That was my first introduction to the professor whose inauguration we're attending today, Professor Charmaine du Plessis. Over the ensuing years, and following Professor du Plessis' move to the Department of Communication Science, I got to know her as an extremely dedicated member of faculty, and one who would inevitably attain the position that today's event formalizes. In her address, Professor du Plessis points to the conceptualization of the brand as a socially formed construct, the transience of that conceptualization, and most importantly, in the context of her lecture, the multidimensional meanings that it has to its consumers, many of which extend beyond mere utility. Central to the theme of her address lie the importance of brands having a purpose, how such purpose acts as a survival mechanism during crises and over the long term, the importance of communicating brand purpose under particular circumstances, in this case the COVID pandemic, across social media platforms, and in her words, that brands stand up for the us who exist in an extended brand ecosystem that includes the personal values of the consumer. The theme of the address is timeless. One of the questions that our discipline faces, and has increasingly faced over the past few years, is the role of communication at the interface between the corporate enterprise and everything that lies beyond, what we may call its stakeholders or suprasystem, for want of better words. One dimension of that communication is the manifestation of a holistic conceptualization of that enterprise, its divisions, properties, products and services, in what we now very widely agree to call its brand or many brands. The suprasystem may include customers and clients, employees, suppliers, broader society, and even the social and natural environment of the firm and its brands. The expression of what the brand stands for, its brand purpose, is expressed in many ways. In the person of the chief executive officer, in the position taken by the brand in politics or specific social, economic, and business issues, and then, of course, in the content and interpretation of its communication as expressed in its planned product and service messaging, and, perhaps most importantly, in unplanned messaging about the brand generated through word of mouth or social media in places where the organization has no control over the message. And the question is not a superficial one. In China, Jack Ma disappears for 3 months at the end of last year, abruptly cancelling the Ant Group's initial public offering, shortly after publicly criticizing Chinese banks' regulations. Coca-Cola, emulating its success in celebrating Martin Luther King's 1964 Nobel Prize in what was then the hostile political environment of Atlanta, this year took a stand against a law that could suppress black voters, only to be lambasted by both sides, by civil rights groups for taking a stance that was deemed weak, and by mostly Republicans for hypocrisy and woke grandstanding. Turning to Vodacom in South Africa, the company that is the subject of today's lecture, and as a further example, civil society and media activists have criticized the company over many years for pricing policies that are determined as much by something out of their control, the government's lack of elasticity in opening up commercial spectrum, as its own strategy. So brand purpose is fine, but woe betide the brand that steps on the wrong toes when trumpeting a thorny purpose. It's possibly best to select a purpose that no one disagrees with, or one that rails against something for which there is no opposition, like justice for all, or, as Benetton did in 2018, proclaim that it is, and I quote, against civil war, against the mafia and urban violence of identity, against ferocious ethnic conflict, against religious wars and fault line wars, against terrorism, and against all forms of resurgent racism. Quote ends. They are, and I hope that I paraphrase correctly, against everything that's bad. Is there really any social entity, company, or brand that stands for the opposite and can say, quite openly, we are for civil war, for the mafia and urban violence, for ferocious ethnic conflict, religious wars, terrorism, and all forms of resurgent racism? Nonetheless, the benefits of corporate activism are plain to see. When in 2004, the CEO of Carlson Travel openly took a stand against sex trafficking, against the advice of everyone in her industry, she was treated as a heroine in the market, much to the benefit of her company. So there is a dividing line. For companies to embrace a moral position, for them to do so volubly, and mostly if the position that they take is contentious, they need to be prepared to fall on either side of the line, to plummet, as did Jack Ma, or to fly, as did Marilyn Carlson Nelson of the Carlson Travel Company. But there are fortunately ways to assess the value in the long term of what we focus on today as the reason for a brand's existence, its brand purpose, and the brand communication that a company engages in to attain that purpose. There are questions that hint at and assist us in determining if our communications will lead to a fall or will allow us to fly. We need to ask, when assessing a brand's social engagement, what Professor du Plessis has described as those activities that a company takes to shape its brand's future by doing good. So we can evaluate the quality of Vodacom's brand purpose, as Professor du Plessis has identified, by ranging it against these criteria, and there are 6. First, does the intervention represent a worldview that differs in significant ways from the reality of business? What is the effect on society? Is it efficient? Does it reduce market uncertainty in a measurable way? Does it act as a necessary condition for social and environmental sustainability? And 6th, to what degree is it an act of altruism or self-interest? So in terms of the 3 main themes generated in Professor du Plessis' study, aligning consumer priorities with core brand values, being future-focused, and helpful information sharing for principle-driven solutions and support, we find that Vodacom's social media messaging around COVID corresponds extremely well with the right side of the line on the first 5, and may it be said, in the dimensions of both altruism and self-interest. Professor du Plessis' discussion and its applicability in the context of emerging economies during the global pandemic serves to highlight not only the position and role of brands in fast transitioning environments in times of crisis, but also the possible rewards and pitfalls of positioning the brand as a moral stake in the ground or as a social compass. The direction of Professor du Plessis' inquiry is one that we look forward to reading and hearing more about in the future, as is her methodology in pursuing this inquiry. I trust that, as she advances in her career as professor, she will transition to the same degree as she has since her days as a marketing officer 22 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. du Plessis, for such an illuminating lecture, wherein you were looking at the branding and the marketing that companies get to employ in putting their identity out there, and how COVID-19, indeed, as you have relayed to us, has had an impact on that. We want to thank you for that, and also thank colleagues who have come this morning to grace this lecture. It is a weekday, a Wednesday, and many of you have had to leave your desks to grace this lecture. For that, we thank you. We thank Professor Angel Polo for responding to the lecture and the analysis that he has given that's made us even think more about the importance of this field of study. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the support of this lecture, and thank everyone, colleagues as well within the College of Human Sciences, within the university, and external to the university, and the family for having come this morning. A lot of people behind the scenes have made possible that we have this lecture, and I want to thank them, the media colleagues who've actually worked to ensure that you can hear me so clear, colleagues who videotaped this work, as well as public relations, and colleagues within institutional advancement who've ensured that the marketing of this lecture, as well as matters that relate to its stature, are attended to so well. Thank you, everyone. The lecture is now closed. Have a good day ahead. Good morning.